I'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Can you, someone tell me in the chat if I'm live here? I forgot to hit the timer. I still not used to this going live stuff like Mark is. All right. Can you hear me? All right. Great. Thank you for letting me know we're live. You can see Shane made it, so that's good. And we're ready to get started with the show, so to speak, and go over the things that we said we'd go over. The first thing that I talked about we'd be going over is follow-up from the Wavy Flag project, just to make sure that if there's any questions, we can talk about those. And I didn't have any questions up front, but are there any questions about what you saw in the video? If not, we can move on to other things. But what I did think I would cover was, and that's not what I wanted to do. I thought I would cover where we had the overlap and how we got there, because that seemed to be the biggest question from last week, was about overlap. So in this case, as you saw, if you saw the video, you know that what we did was poured the black area first. So I want to go ahead. I mean, we poured the white first. And so you can see that as my first tool path up here. And the reason we could do that was we were going to take the red stripes, and we're going to overlap the white in this area. So we needed overlap on red in the white area up here, and on the end and over here. And then the other area we needed it was over here. And we were able to do that because we were taking this gold. I'm going to turn this off for a second. We're taking this gold border and we're overlapping both the red and the white. So in the end, we covered both of those, and that took care of any overlap features that we needed to have. And that was the first area of overlap we needed to take care of.
Hey, Rob, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't see anything except you.
Okay, well, that's probably because I need to reshare the screen then. I thought I had it on share. Somebody else made a comment, so you're not the only one. I just see it over in the screen. Okay, let's start that discussion again. Can you see it now?
Yep.
All right. I don't have it up on anywhere else, but it says my screen sharing. And then let's set up this screen share so that we're both in there. Oh, this is the one I was looking for. All right. So I wanted to talk about the overlap strategy again, and thanks for letting us know. So the key is that I wanted to talk about where we need overlap and where we don't. So the first pour, I'm going to get probably easier if I take these all off right now. So the first pour I set up was white epoxy, and then we're going to cut the red out from all that. And I'm not going to go through all of this because we did that last week, but there was a question about overlap, and I wanted to reemphasize the overlap concept. So the first thing we needed to overlap is we need to make sure that when we put in the red stripes, that we go all the way out to the end or close to the end of the white. And I'll explain that in a minute. So we made all of that come out in this direction because we were going to overlap the red stripes and the white with this gold border that I just turned on. So hopefully you can see we were going to overlap there. The other thing that we needed overlap on was on the blue field, which is the union. And you can see what we did. That was the last pour. So we overlapped the red here. We overlapped into the white and over on this side. And then you can see when we do the gold, you can see that overlaps all of this. And the gold was the last color that we poured for overlap. And then we put in our stars and did all of the other stuff. So I'm not going to go over all the layers again, but I wanted to point out where we had the key interfaces for overlap. And I think one of the questions that got brought up when we were having this discussion is that why do we need overlap and how much? And so in that video, I went in there to explain that, but I thought it might be good if I opened up a demo file that Shane and I had done once before a couple years ago. And let me explain what you see here. So this is a 2D view. And in this view, in this area, these are 15-degree V-bits. So I could probably put down here 15 for degree V-bits. And let me shrink that down. Hit close. And over here, I'm going to hit Control while I move, so that will duplicate it. This is going to be 30, a 30-degree V-bit. Hit close. And so now, again, if we take and we go to move this and I hit the Control key and bring it over, it'll duplicate it over here. It's just so we have it. So what you see here is we got 15-degree and a 30-degree V-bit. And in this version, you can see that each of these vectors, and it starts at 0.02, 0.04, 0.06, 0.08, 0.1, and 0.12 are the sizes of those vectors. And there's no overlap between any of those vectors. Now, if you come over to the other side, what I've done is I put in 0.01 degrees overlap. Now, that's a little more than what I had in the video, but I wanted to be able to show it a little bit better. So these are each 0.01. And of course, there's a bigger space right here between these two vectors. I just didn't want them to be piling on top of each other. So if I come over here and I go to the 3D mode, and we look at it in this direction, and I'm going to go ahead and use a 15-degree and a 30-degree V-bit, and I'm going to run those tool paths and show you what it looks like on the side. And this is where my Mac would have bogged down. It would have taken forever to do that part that I need to work on. So what I want to point out is the overlap we're talking about. If you look at the 15-degree V-bit on the ones where there was no overlap at all, you can see this peak rises all the way to the top here. And over here, it also rises all the way to the top. And anything under this peak here is wood or epoxy, whatever was underneath there. If you come over to the ones where we have overlap of 0.01, if you come here, you can actually see that the peak is lower than the surface of the wood, which means there's less of a mountain here. And the same for each of these as we go through for the 15-degree bit, and this is the 30-degree bit. So it's much less of a problem with a 15-degree bit than it is with a 30-degree bit, and that's why Shane and I tend to lean towards 15-degree bits, especially if you're going to get into small vectors. So now let me show you what happens if I surface this thing at 0.02 inches, recognizing that that's a 0.5 millimeter. So it's not unreasonable to plan on taking off a 0.5 to 1 to 1.5 millimeters off the surface to get all your epoxy, surfaced off. I just saw a comment. I thought he making an epoxy project of Shane. Okay, so I must have pointed to something weird. So I'm pointing on my screen and I can't see Shane. I can see where your screen is. That's weird. How come it's doing that? All right, so let's go ahead and run that surfacing path.
Rob, just so you know, I think he was talking about earlier when you weren't sharing your screen, but you were describing it like here to here to here to here. So
I thought he meant because I was pointing here and on the screen.
No. I think it was just earlier, but maybe not.
All right. So I just ran the milling path, and I want you to look at what happens at the top of these mountains. Assuming this is wood underneath, the 15-degree, it's not as big a deal. But if I go down any more, you're really going to see wood there. And in the 30-degree, look at how you see the wood already popping through those vectors. So if you put those vectors right on top of each other and you mill down a full millimeter, you're going to have wood exposed between the two of them, or you're going to have a clear epoxy or whatever was underneath. If you go over here to 0.01, you can see that your opportunity, now these don't count because these are intentional spaces, you're not going to have the underlying epoxy popping through. So that is, with a 15-degree, you're really safe. And if you go over to a 30-degree, you're probably pretty good, although you're getting close on a couple of these. And so you may really, especially here, you may really want to have more overlap, meaning the vectors are overlapped more. And Shane normally recommends about 0.05 if you can do it. But anywhere between 0.02 to 0.05, I've found to not give me much problems, especially if I used a clear coat underneath it. So I just wanted to take a minute to go through the actual overlap demo here in case anybody's still struggling with the concept of overlap. So there we go. Any questions? Or with that, Shane, do you have anything, since you've probably been watching the questions, do you have anything you want to add or tell me where I'm hosed up?
No, so you did this demo with a 0.01?
Yeah.
Not a 0.1?
No, 0.01.
Okay.
And we can see that if we go to these vectors, if we measure it right here and we look between the two vectors right here, right there, you can see 0.01 up there on the left top.
Okay.
So I did that with a 0.01 and we were safe. The other thing I think probably to look at on this, if I turn on the vectors, you can actually see, if I get just the right angle, this is the height of the actual real surface before I surfaced it. All right. So you can see how far down we went on the view and how the mountaintops can start to get wider and wider as you come down there, meaning they're flattening out and you're seeing them through the epoxy.
And what is that measurement between the original surface and what you did there? How much did you take off with the surfacing bit?
Say that again.
How much did you take off with the surfacing bit? What's that distance between?
This is a 0.5 millimeter.
Okay.
0.02 inches. So I normally overlap at least 0.03, But if I'm in a really tight area, I might go down to 0.02 inches. So the other thing you have to deal with is when you're dealing with that, let's take a look at the depth of the V-carve. So if you're using a 30-degree V-bit, and we looked at this first vector of 0.02, look at that. It almost completely disappeared. All right, that's with a 15-degree V-bit. Let's look at a 30-degree V-bit. It did disappear. You can't even see it anymore. Excuse me, I got that confused. This is a 30-degree V-bit, and this is a 15-degree V-bit with no overlap. You can see how deep it went. By the time you milled it, you've only got that little sliver. So if you go anything more than a half mil for a 0.02 inch vector, and what I mean by that is I'm measuring the vector width. Like if you had in your design and you come over here and you come across, it's only 0.02 inches wide. So when you start getting really small vectors, you have to take care of that with a number of ways. One might be to fool it a little bit by starting with a start depth of a little more, right? So instead of starting at 0 start depth, you might go 0.01 or 0.005 or something, just to give you a little more depth. So that's what you have to do when you start working with real tiny width vectors. You try to make them bigger, but if you can't, you might have to fold the V-bit to starting a little deeper. Any other insights on that, Shane?
No, that sounds about right. What I've been doing a lot lately is when I have really small words and things like that, where the little spot, the middle of the A will be like a 0.005 or something that's left and just wants to break off of there. What I've been doing is flattening the whole project and then just coming back and kind of scratching that in at like a 0.03 deep, and then just hand sanding, starting at like a 360 or like a 240 or a 320 to take whatever that last pour was off. Because you're never going to get that 0.125 deep on a real small vector, just like you're showing right there. So a lot of times I'm just kind of going back in and scratching in what needs to be scratched in after the board's already completely flattened and almost ready to go, except for that last color. And then I go in there, I scratch that in just barely under the surface, pour it, hand sand it, and then, sand up to the high grits, and then it's done. And then you don't even, then your overlap, you could be a lot smaller than we're talking about.
Yeah, I hope everybody understood what you're saying there. Basically, he's pretty much got it done, and in some cases may have even surfaced it initially, like just flat, but not down ultra flat. And then he can go ahead and do his small carve again and maintain it when he surfaces it. Is that right, Shane?
That is right.
I like Shane's idea of using an end mill when pocketing into epoxy. What's that, Brooks, that you're emphasizing there? Let's see here. I thought he was making an epoxy project of Shane. Can you take my quote down, Jim? Can you take my quote down so we can see the entire screen? Not sure what that means.
It's up there right now, kind of blocking, underneath you and I.
Yeah, I just put it up there right now. Was it up there before?
I think I didn't really notice, but I think it was.
Okay.
Man, this I'm not going to get into a bunch of politics or anything like that, but ever since the 13th, if this inlay business would have been like this from the very beginning, I would have never even had to learn any of this other stuff with the small vectors. This Trump inlay I'm doing, It just will not stop selling. It is just going crazy, and it is the easiest thing. I cut a circle out, pour that white, come back in one cut, pour that red, and no small vectors or anything like that. And it's just the easiest money ever. Unless one of my customers is listening, then man, is it ever hard.
Okay, so Brooks, I got what he meant. I thought that's how you did the gold pocket. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Now I know what you're talking about. Okay, so what you're talking about, Shane, let me Brooks, is let me take that down. Let me put the vectors back up real quick. I don't need the guide. All right. So I do know what you're talking about now. So what you're talking about, Shane, Brooks, is when we decided to use a regular end mill for the red stripes, because we were cutting right into the white epoxy straight on, so we didn't need to use a V-bit. When I did the gold border, I did use a V-bit, but I probably could have gotten away without using a V-bit because I was gapping both sides of that. So I could have used an end mill for that, and it wouldn't have been a problem.
But you would have forfeited your sharp gold corners, right?
Yeah, that's the problem. You would forfeit your sharp gold corners.
That's not worth the other reason. Use that V-bit.
So that's why I used the V-bit, or in my case, the tapered ball nose that I substitute for a V-bit. All right. Picture of the boards I am doing. Shane, do you have
wanted to see if Brooks is talking about, is he asking for a picture of what I was talking about, or
I think so, because I think he said that you said it's doing so well. I think they're just interested in seeing what the boards are that you're doing.
Yeah, let me grab one.
Do you have a picture you can share on the screen, or just?
I'll just bring it.
Okay.
Hold on.
Let me see if I can make you big, buddy. I'm trying to. I can't get my cursor to go in the right area. All right, you're big. You're big. All right, so they can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry, my dog's barking. Sammy, stop it. I was muted because of that. Yeah, these are the boards. Just insane what they're, I thought, there's been a lot of sports teams and things like that, like the Niners and, Dodgers are a huge seller, those were like, I don't even know how many I've done, but this is absolutely insane. Like I've never seen anything like this.
So how many boards do you have on order? You were telling me the other day, and then you got like 20 more after that.
Yeah, I've maxed it out. I was only doing 47 of them. They'll all be hand numbered, and that's maxed out. So, that's it though. Like, it's just I'm able to rotate 4 a day. So I'm just cutting a pocket 4 times, pouring those, moving them. I'm cutting the other 4 of the words, pouring those, moving them, just back and forth like that. So I'm putting out like 4 a day, and then, finishing later. And it's just back to how it was crazy before. And I'm not liking that part of it. Yeah. Wow. Brooks just said time for price increases. Yeah. It's nuts. I made jokes. And of course I completely joked. Like I said, like, man, if I'd have known that this would have bring sales, I would have taken the shot myself years ago, like I could have retired. Like it's just me actually even making this a limit of 47 because that's the number that he may be if he wins or anything like that. was probably a huge mistake because I've since I've maxed out, I've turned down 15 more at least.
Yeah. Well, you priced them actually pretty reasonable from what you told me.
Yeah, I did. Just because it's just such an easy inlay, you know. Just 2 colors. I mean, I can't even think of any other 2-color inlays I ever do.
So the other thing I thought I would talk about is when I did this inlay, we took and let me take down this gold for a second. And well, let me put the gold up. And if I come in here, what I wanted to show was the overlap that was going on between the white and the gold and the white and the gold out here. And if you measure that, you'll see that the overlap I had between the white and the outside border was 0.13 inches. And the reason I went out there, and this may be what Brooks was talking about also, we went out that far. I went out that far because I wanted to be able to use the clearance bit of an 1/8 inch end mill. So it was still a V bit so I could get the square corner up here, but I wanted to be able to clear it out with an 1/8 inch end mill, which meant that everything in the gold, let's start over here now, come across, that had to be greater than an 1/8 inch.
Yeah, right? I think I even went bigger than that, huh?
Yeah, you went like a 1/2 inch.
Yeah.
So do you have your picture? And so if you go on the inside, you'll see that's at 0.07 inches. And we said 0.05 is his normal number. So we had plenty of overlap with that gold border. And so the way we did it was we poured all this white. I already mentioned that before. And then we did the red stripes. Now, if you wanted to do it a different way, we could have done the overlap so that the white was overlapping into the red 0.05 inches each time on the top. And then when you carved it, it would come down to the right size. We could have done it that way too, but this was easier.
Hello.
Did you have a picture of your version of the board, Shane?
No, I only for that flag I did. I think I sent that stuff to Jessica and she posted it for me on the Instagram. But
I saw it on the Instagram.
Yeah, I can try to. Let me see if I could find it here.
All right. Any other questions on this board? And he'll be looking for that other picture. So the other thing that I wanted to point out that I've been working on is, let me open it up. I had, and I posted a short on this. I had a fire department reach out to me, and they originally told me that they wanted a logo, their logo engraved into the top of the table. And so there was, I had to go through and take all of these vectors from this logo and get this converted. And I've had a couple people reach out and say they would like to see how I did that. And I'm trying to figure out how I can do that without having an 1.5 or 2 hour video. So I'm working on that. But the other thing is I gave them this logo, and I asked them if they wanted it as an epoxy inlay or just something that you carve. And so they originally said that they wanted something that I just carve into the table, because I had made several of those badges earlier and they've seen those. And so the difference is important for people to recognize is that you have to totally set up the vectors in a different way if you're going to do a V carve, meaning something that carves in. And let's take a look at what I mean by that. Hold on. Let's see if I can. Pull this over there.
Man, I don't know how you know what you're running with those names. You don't use a number system in the front, so because you still only get like what 6 digits on your handheld controller, right? That you're looking at.
Yeah, but I'm a lot smarter than you are.
Yeah, that's very true.
No, actually, this is only so. That's a great comment, Shane. So this is only for me when I'm initially setting it up, so I don't get confused about what vectors I'm grabbing.
Okay.
And then when I go to save these as actual tool paths for my handheld controller, I'm going to change these into what bits I'm using and the color.
Do you have the email I sent you of the flag when I sent that over? And that's when you kind of called me out and said, "Hey, you made your thing bigger." Didn't I send that?
I didn't see it. You mean just now?
No. I thought I had sent that to you last week or something. But
yeah, you sent me something, but I don't know where it is. And I'm not on my.
That'll have the way I named my tool paths in there too. I just didn't know if you did it the same way or not. I was just curious.
I do it similar. I do it very similar, but I'm not on my normal computer, so I don't even want to attempt to try to go find it. So what I wanted to demonstrate is this is the original concept, is that they wanted it carved into the wood. Now, when I did this for a police department, I did it this way, and then I did it another way where everything that was carved in was painted black and everything else to give contrast, but he didn't want it that way. So I showed him that. He was really happy with that. And I want to point out a couple differences here in a second. And so then I said, now, since I've done all this work, I could actually do an epoxy inlay if you want that. And I gave them a decent price because they're a fire department, and I have a soft heart for the fire department and police department. And I want you to notice a couple differences, and I don't know whether we'll be able to see it on the screen as quick, but I'm going to try to compare them like this. So in the vectors for the epoxy inlay, the plan is I'm first going to pour a clear pocket, and that's what this, if I back all these things out.
Is that the yellow line? Yeah.
Yeah, you can barely see it, but that's a yellow line. That's a clear pocket. That's the one I'm going to pour first. And I'm still debating whether I go in like a 1/4 inch and just do that, because the next pocket I'm going to pour is this black, and it's going to be all black. So that eliminates all my overlap stuff except in one area, and that's going to be the red. All right. And so now when I put the white skull in, you see I'm carving all of these things directly into the black. So it made, and then the last one is white banner. So it made this, only place where I needed overlap was right here in the red, where the red's overlapping the black. Because if remember, this is how the logo looks. This is actually supposed to be red. It shows white in this picture, but it's supposed to be red. So that's the only place that I needed to do overlap, because everything else is going straight into the black. So that makes a nice clean vector. And that meant I didn't have to put a lot of extra work into this, or vectors. If we come over to the V-carve inlay, over to this area, you'll see I had to add a whole set of vectors around the outside here. And it wasn't just a straight fit, because if I did that, then the other problem that I was having was this mustache was curving all the way in. And it was looking bizarre having the mustache hang in there. So what I wanted was the mustache to stick out. So I had to rearrange these vectors in a more complicated way than I did with the epoxy inlay to get that carve to look right. And then I had to fake it out by putting this line right here. And that allows me to do a profile toolpath with a V-bit that will make it look like it's part of this pocket. And let me show you what I mean. I'll just go ahead and preview the whole thing. So you can see what I did with the mustache is I had the pocket around it, and then I put the V-bit in this way to make the mustache stay proud. And the other concern was that when I had the mustache carving it in, when you got right in here, this was a really thin bead. It could have easily chipped out. So the way I had it originally. So this is how I did to fake it out. And I think it's actually looking pretty good if you ask me.
Yeah, it looks good.
Any thoughts? And Kurt talks about how he numbers his toolpaths. Yeah, we have to number our toolpaths with the bit that we want and the end mill or V-bit, whatever it is we're using, so we can differentiate it on our handheld controllers. All right, any other questions then? I just wanted to lay that out because I'm getting ready to put together a video in that area because people have asked me to do that, and I'm just trying to figure out how to do that in a reasonable time so it doesn't take forever to lay out those vectors. I can't hear you, Shane. You're muted.
I said, if you want, I can share my screen really quick if you want to see how I number mine.
Yeah, yes, I do. Let's stop. I'm going to stop mine and go ahead.
All right, hold on a second here. All right. I just have to look and see. I always have a hard time finding where I share at. Hold on.
I understand. It says present.
Ah, got it. Okay.
And then share entire screen, and you'll share your entire screen.
Okay.
You have two screens?
Yeah, sorry. Just let's see. I'm doing this now. Don't show tips again. Okay. So entire screen. Select the tab to share. I'll do that right now. Got it. Here we go. Okay, and share. Okay, so, oops, I made that too big. I'm gonna scroll this down. This is actually a really big project. It's about 4 feet wide and a little over 2 feet tall. That way I could get 3 at a time at these like 2-foot charcuterie boards with the NFL logo inlay. That's another big thing that's selling. So let me go over here to my toolpaths. There we go. Can you guys see that? So the first, you only see the first 6 letters. So I put this in here for myself at the end, but this is really all I use. And I always cut, almost always cut 2, then 1, then 4, then 3, then 6, then 5.
And what do those numbers stand for, Shane? Explain that to people.
So like the very first one is the FB. It just lets me know I'm because I have so many files on these drives. It lets me know I'm talking about the football deal. Although lately I've been using like different thumb drives for everything, so I don't get confused. But so that just kind of lets me know the order that I'm cutting them, and I know that. And that 15 is a 15 degree. The 14 is a 1/4 inch. The 18 is a 1/8 inch. Just like that. So then I just kind of know on the machine what I'm doing. And I almost always run my clearing path. I'm sorry, last. So I run my V-bit first. People ask, well, why don't you just number them that way? And I don't know. It's just because the machine puts them out this way. So I just track it where I run my V-bit and then my clearing afterwards. But just in case anyone's, I don't even know. I'm sure guys have setups where, you know, they can make the file as long as they want and not even have to worry about doing this. But once they limited me with just 6 digits to be able to see on the handheld controller, I had to just figure out a way to know what the hell I was trying to cut out there each time.
Yeah, so I number it similar to you, Shane, but I do it just a little bit different because of the way you first taught me. And so I would take like number 1, where it's a 1/4 inch there. I would probably put 1 BL because it's black, 1/4. So I would know it was a black 1/4 inch, and then I would put 2 V15 or 2 BL V15 or something. So it would always be less than 6 characters, but I try to include a short number for the color, because that's the way when you first taught me, you had to color inside
Right.
the 6 codes. And so that's what I do. I'll take all of those ones that were on my screen and shift those over. And
I had to abandon that once I got into boards with 30 or 40 colors in them.
Yeah.
So I had to quickly go off of that and just know, you know, set it up correctly and just, you know, run them in order, you know, how they came out, because the colors were, you know, there was no way for me to keep track of those once I got past just a few colors.
Yeah. And so like Shane said and Mark said there, in general, I run my V bits first. There are occasions where I will run a clearance bit before I run my V bit, but 9 times out of 10, I'll be running my V bit first.
Yeah, you get pressure on both sides of the V bit that way. It's a lot cleaner. You don't have to worry about things breaking off and chipping.
And let's see, any other questions in here? I don't see any empty questions. Anybody have questions for us? I did think there might be something of interest. Let me show you something real quick. I'll do a share screen again here, because I started to share it before and I didn't do a very good job of it. And one of the questions that gets asked of me often is because I used to manually run the surface on each of these. In other words, I would manually hold my controller and run it. And people ask, do I ever program it? And so then I didn't normally program it.
I still never have.
I've
never programmed it. I run them all manual.
Okay, well, I didn't used to do it, but because my fingers get tricky sometimes and I let off when I don't want to let off, or as Shane may recall, I hit the Z when I meant to hit the come across. That was one of our first events. I decided to go ahead and develop a process for myself that makes it easy for me to program each time I do a design. It just depends on the board. So let me show you what I do. So this one you see doesn't have a surfacing program in it right now at all. Nothing in here. So the first thing I do is I've got a file saved that's a vector. And so if I come over here and I go to import vectors, I've got a vector saved up here called surfacing with a 2.5 bit, because that's what my bit is. The slab slayer is 2.5 bits in diameter. So I've got this. I open this up, and just to make sure I always have it available, I'm going to go to 2D view now. You can see when I look at that, I'm going to let me get all of this and group it for a second. I'm going to hit G for group, and then I'm going to hit center across the material. And now you can see that I've got this V-bit centered across the material. And because I do, and I'm going to ungroup now, hit U for ungroup, I'm going to take my 2.5-inch bit, and if I just move it straight down, you can see how hopefully you can see that, it goes right over the edge of this wood, okay? And so I'm in good shape going down. And I didn't mean to take the whole thing down. apparently I grabbed it. So I'm going to hit Control Z and let it go back up. I didn't mean to grab this part and that part. I just wanted to grab the bit. But you saw the gist of it. It comes straight down. Now I'm going to take this bit and I'm going to move it out of the way. And I thought I had that group, but I didn't. That's okay. And now I've got this coming across, and my bit, I know, I'm going to group this again, hit group. My bit, as I said, is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to move that right down here. And so that I don't want burning. So I don't want it sitting over the board. So now that I've got it sitting here, I can take this part here and I can do a node, go to node edit, hit N. I can come over here and I can come straight down till I snap right there in the center of the bit or very close. I can go over it. That's okay too. But if I wanted to get it just at the right spot, I can go right to here. And I know that when this bit comes up and turns, this is a profile cut path, that it will be not on the board. It won't be burning the board. If I come down and I do the same thing now.
What about your rails?
Just
your
a
bottom
second.
rail?
Just a second. Let me finish because you're jumping ahead of me and I'm not sure I can do two things at once.
Do you do this and then walk away and then come back, or do you stand there and make sure and watch it the whole time?
Do you want ungroup? No. Oh, I got to go to out of node mode. I always watch my machine.
Me too, and that's why I just say, well, why the hell am I programming anything if I'm not comfortable enough to walk away anyway?
Because I can, Shane, the reason I program it is so that if my hands slip on the buttons, I don't end up with a problem.
Got you.
All right. So that's why I program it. So I'm going to go back to the node mode here because I've had my hands slip. They're not as strong as they used to be in other things. So
and Carrie has a question too.
All right.
If we get to in a minute.
Okay, just a second. I got confused talking and chewing at the same time. So normally this is all grouped up, but I think I accidentally ungrouped it before when we were talking. See, it's going up there and it shouldn't be. I'm going to do this side here. Something happened there, so I'm going to bring it up like this. If I hit the Alt key, I wouldn't be doing that. And for some reason, see, I can't talk and chew gum at the same time.
Already you guys almost all you guys are just so smart at CNC. You understand this stuff so good, but just the amount of time that would
no, Shane, it doesn't take that long.
You know that I don't know if you ever saw that meme with that black lady that said, "Ain't nobody got time for that." That's it. My brain just does that automatically once I spend it in 4 seconds.
So they don't have to do this, but I'm letting them know why I do it. All right.
I'm just busting your balls out.
I don't want to take a chance. So now I've got these adjusted on both sides, and then I come over here and I cut this one right here, and then go out of node mode, delete this vector, and now what happens is this is going to go back and forth. And it's a lot easier to do when I'm not talking and trying to answer questions right in the middle of it. So you come up here and you see I've on this side of the board. So this side of the board, this board is only 11.5 inches by 11.5 inches. I got plenty of room over here. I got plenty of room on the left side. And all I have to do now is come over to this tool path now. Let me get this out of the way. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select a profile toolpath. I'm going to grab this vector. I'm going to go down. I like to go down a 0.5 millimeter at a time. So I'm going to start with 0.02. I'm going to select my Dragon Slayer bit.
Dragon Slayer. What's that one?
Slab Slayer, same thing.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Obviously, I have too many
Rob,
bits
look at
here.
your screen. Look at the question mark asked.
What? Oh, you guys been married long. Yeah.
Because we've been.
I don't think that's the right bit, but that gives you the idea. For some reason, I should have practiced this one ahead of time. So now I've got my bit here, and what I'm going to do is I calculate it, and I have my surfacing path now, and then I can just go ahead, preview visible, see if it works right, see if that bit was big enough. No, that I picked the wrong bit. See, it still got my tapered ball nose. Well, hell.
Well, this could be another reason I don't program, because I've never added a tool into my stuff. I just kind of went with what's in there, so I wouldn't even know how to.
Remember, I'm not on my normal computer, so it's not set up the way the.
Oh no! I wasn't busting your balls. I was saying that no, I don't think my database even has the 2.5 inch slab bit.
I'm saying I'm busting myself down. I didn't go through this real good, but anyway, this can be very embarrassing because I thought I had them all right here, and this is a different computer, like I said.
Hey Rob, is there something where you could like your tool, like all the tools you have programmed in there, they could be on a file where it could be put on my computer and I start using that instead of what I have, or no?
Yes. Could easily be done, but I didn't take the time to do that before This isn't even an updated database right now. What you see here is I don't even have the slab slayer in there. This one I think is only a 2-inch bit, so it may not work. So then I go ahead and preview the visible toolpath, and let's put the toolpath color. And it looks like these didn't get connected either. All right, you guys get the gist of it.
Can't you just hit it again and click the button right next to the overlap or the yeah? Now just go over to where.
No, it's not. I can fix it, but the problem is, here we go. It's got the wrong toolpath on the first profile that I did.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And I'm not as good as Mr. Lindsay is at thinking under pressure when I get this stuff going. I should have checked out this tool database on this other computer. It's the tool database isn't up to speed, so I'm in trouble. It doesn't have the spoiler bit in here that I thought it did.
John put what we can do on there too, and I just made a little joke, but I'm sure maybe on here some people weren't around in the very beginning when I started all this, and I'm still the exact same. I know about 8 or 9 of these buttons on VCarve, and I had figured out a way to master this whole thing, and that's all I know. So outside of that, importing tool registries or whatever the fuck or whatever the heck that's called, I just don't do it. And then Rob is always really good. He says, "Oh, there's a YouTube video on this, and let me send it to you." And he sends it to me, and I was like, "Oh man, that's 9 minutes long. I just don't have that kind of time." So I'm still stuck in 2017, but I'm able to just produce highly advanced inlays, and that's about it.
Yeah, you can see that this is a November 22 import on the bits that I have. So I think this is the right one finally. And we'll hit calculate now. Now I'll change the tool path to this color so you can see it. Hit preview visible.
That might have been that little ball nose again.
No.
Looks like it just scratched down your board and made it yellow.
It's going around. These are not joined. Something happened.
Can you join those with one click right there next to the like join vectors?
Something happened when I was doing the ungroup and group thing.
Down. Yeah, right. No, next one over to the right. Just right. No, next one over to the right of that one, just by one. Click that. Yeah. Now are they linked?
Well, I don't know. We're going to find out. It's an open vector. It should be open because it's one open vector. So it should have. It's not going to close them because it's not a closed vector. I have to go through here and check.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you got to just highlight the nodes. Okay.
Yeah, I've got it so that it's not working right. I did something with the grouping up here. So, folks at home, don't drive and talk at the same time. So sorry. I'll have to go figure that out, and I just don't want to take everybody's time. Shane, answer questions while I look at this.
So, let's see here. There was one back from Carrie. It says sometimes vectors get really close and overlap each other. When calculating tool paths, you get overlap errors. Then I have to move the vectors. Now my overlaps are under the 0.01. What can I do? So, I've always just ignored whatever thing the VCarve is telling me those errors. I just ignore it because I know that the first thing I do when I create each layer of colors, I search to make sure there's no open vectors. If there are, I make sure they're either deleted or closed or whatever. So I know if there's no open vectors and I have it set up right, whatever this software is telling me is just wrong. It just thinks it is telling me something, but it always works out perfectly. So I really don't. That's probably going to be a question that Rob can answer. He would have put the time into actually checking to see what that error is instead of just believing you're better than the machine and just ignoring it.
Okay, here's my error right here. So everybody come back to this. I instead of putting it on the vector like I was supposed to, hold on.
Hey, baby, how are you? Good.
Hey, shut up.
Is that Rob? Was that? Hold on.
Did you guys hear me tell them to shut up?
Yeah. I was going to mute you, but it's too late now.
No, they're my grandkids going crazy. And I just don't have the patience sometimes to say it nicely after I've told them 500 times. So anyway, I'm coming back to here. Instead of being on the vector, I was outside the vector, so it's coming outside this way. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
So now I'm going to hit calculate. And if we look at the vector now, you can see it moving along the vector. Hit close, and then I'm going to go ahead and preview, and then preview visible. And now you can see that it's doing it all by itself, and I can't possibly slip with my fingers. And that's why I do it. And I take it down to the surface, and it goes down a 0.5 millimeter to the area where I was zeroing to begin with. And then if that's not enough, I'll go ahead and take it down to the next one and go down. So I just step myself down a 0.5 millimeter each time. If that makes sense. Any other questions? Did you answer all the questions, Shane?
I'm looking right now just to see if there's anything else. Kevin asked if we follow the grain when using that big bit. I've never even thought about doing that, but that's probably a good idea. But just because I take off so little at a time, I mean, a 0.5 millimeter will be the most I ever took off. I usually don't do that much because I don't want to have tear out on the epoxy. So I'm able to do that, and then I do a 1/10 of a millimeter clear. When I'm all done, I do one more 1/10 of a millimeter, and then from there, the sanding always gets out any issues I would have. So I don't really worry about the grain. And a lot of my projects, they're just, there's no more grain left. There's sometimes just a wood border around the edge, and that's it. So I've never really thought about that, but I'm sure Rob has put thought into that because he's a smart guy.
Most of the time, I go with the grain of the wood. All right. So if for some reason, if the grain of the wood was in the Y direction, which I normally try to do, I would go in the Y direction for my surfacing. If the grain of the wood was in the X direction, then I would go in the X direction.
Okay.
And
Kevin up there.
Yeah, basically, Kevin said when I do a vector trace, sometimes it gets really fuzzy. Yeah, it can. Are you talking, Kevin, about when you vector trace? If I come over here to the 2D view, for example, if you vector trace this, you're going to have squiggly lines and so forth. What do you mean by gets really fuzzy? Okay, yeah, that's what he meant. So let me show that real quick. I can show you what you're talking about. I'm going to come over here to the layers. I'm going to turn on the bitmap. I'm going to take this bitmap and I'm going to copy it to, first I got to get on it. Take this bitmap and I'm going to copy it over to that sheet, this new sheet here. Well, I wanted it on sheet 1, but this will work. So if I'm going into this sheet here and I've got the bitmap and I go in here to the design, just like he said, if I do a bitmap trace and I hit preview here, and I'm not going to take the time to make it all pretty. So now if we're in there and I come over here and then I hit close, and then I take and turn off the bitmap so I can see what it ended up like. You can see all of these layers are all fuzzy. I think that's what Kevin's talking about. That's going to happen all the time. And I haven't had anything except even in here, if you look at this, let me turn on the nodes. You can see if I click here. Do you want to ungroup the selected objects? Yes. So if I look at the nodes, you can see they're all squiggly. That is not going to carve well at all.
No.
And so let me turn off the nodes. You have to go in here and clean all these up. And that's where there's tons and tons of work. And so depending on how you want to approach it, for example, when I did this one, and I don't have time to go through that here, but I will go through that in the video that I make on it, and I'll try to do it in an expedited manner. You're going to have to basically go through each of these, and let me just do this one real quick. You're going to have to come in here, and you're going to have to take out, going to do things like take that node completely out. Hit D to take it out. And then you're going to take out probably this one here. D.
You can't just highlight those and turn them to smooth?
I'm highlighting more of them, turning them to smooth. That's what I just did. I took all those. That's one option. The other option that I first do before I ever actually do that is I take them all and I use this simple curve fit curves to selected vectors. I use the term 0.004 tolerance. I make them Bezier curves and I max angle 60, hit preview, and you can see how it reduced the number of nodes already. Hit OK. And now you can see that there's more smooth nodes and there's going to be less cleanup that I have to do. And I would do that all along here. Watch all these nodes.
Hold on, leave that part of your screen on there. I got to take a picture of that. Hold on one second.
Hit preview, and you see how all of those just reduced tremendously. So now I have less nodes to clean up. Let me cancel it so you can see it since you were taking a picture, Shane. I select that. I hit curve fit. You see all these nodes? Now if I hit preview, see how few nodes there are? We just cleaned up a whole bunch of nodes. So that's the first thing I do. I hit OK. But in this case, there are several vectors that I'm just going to have to plain get rid of. For example, if you look over here at the outside, see how it loops in here? It connected these two vectors, and it's a real mess. So I'll end up actually taking the time and deleting that whole set of vectors.
And then just overlap or just offset.
Then I'll come in here and grab those, grab these, and clean them up. So you see, I'm just going through and grabbing the easy ones. Too much there because did everybody see what happened there?
Yeah, you lost the axe.
I deleted the axe head, so I didn't want to do that. So I'll delete these, then I'll delete these. I'll delete this one, delete this one. And so I'll go through and I'll start cleaning up this whole thing.
You lost your middle piece there. You want to do the same thing, but you want to select that middle, right? Don't you want that middle? Hit Control Z.
Hello? Can you hear me, Shane?
Yeah.
Did my screen go black?
Yeah, your screen's there, but I don't know if you meant to do that. Were you supposed to keep that little piece that was inside there?
I could, or I could just get rid of it. Either way. But what actually happened was all three of my screens that I was working on just went black. So yes. So what he's saying is I normally wouldn't have deleted that. I'd come back and undo it.
Well, you can also, instead of having to do 3 or 4 moves like that, you could still select all that and then just shift and click those 2 pieces, and then that would unselect them, right?
Yes. I think you're saying like do that.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, so the next step is I go through and I clean up all of these little goobers. And then as Shane suggested, I will take and I will offset this one. Normally, say 0.125. Let's just pick one. It might not be enough. Outwards, keep the sharp corners. Although I don't need sharp corners in this case, so I don't need to do that. Hit offset. And now I've got this border in a nice, clean fashion. Notice I didn't delete all these before because I was just trying to show you what I would do. So once I have all those cleaned up, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the hat. And of course, I'm going to clean it up. And then I'm going to start into the individual nodes again. I'm going to come over here, close this. I'm going to use this tool. I'm going to hit preview, see how many nodes it got rid of. Hit OK. And then I would take and I would start cleaning up this using these nodes by simply where I need to adjusting these individual vectors. And that's where it takes some time to get used to. For example, these two here, it didn't smooth out. I would have smoothed those out. And in fact, I would have taken this one out completely. Then I go hit smooth again. And now we have a nice round hat there. So that's the idea. We would just go through and we would clean all this stuff up. And watch what you select, because you never know what you're going to take out, but that's what you can always do the undo about. So I'm going to go through and I'd clean up all of that, and then I would have everything done. Now, I will say on these, you're not going to clean these up the way you want them. So what I do for this is I actually come over to this circle tool.
And I just got a warning. My laptop looks like it's just about out of battery. So if I drop off, that's why. But
okay,
want me to plug in, but my charger's over on the other part of the
house.
So
I basically grab the circle tool and I bring it so that it matches this shape here. And so now you know I've got that done. So then I'm going to hit the control key. It's in move, right? I'm going to hit the control key and I'm going to hit alt. Apparently I hit the wrong key. Hit control Z here again. I'm going to hit the start moving, hit the control key. And it'll duplicate it. Hit alt. It'll bring it straight across, and you can see that they're out of alignment already a little bit. Hit control again. Come across. And now I've got these circles here. What I would start doing is adjusting each of these vectors so they fit just perfect the way I want them. And since I know it wants to be up a little bit there, I'll go over there. And then I would change these vectors to the red section. So as you see, I just keep going through it. Same thing with the eyeballs. Try to get in the center. Get it close. Hit node mode. Bring it up over here. Bring it over here a little. Here. Bring it down. And now I have that. Take it out of node mode. Hit the control key. Bring it over. And now I've got those eyeballs. Looks like it didn't copy again. For some reason, it's... There we go. Well, it's not working. Normally, if you hit control and bring it across, it's a copy. There, it worked that time. So then I would go in and I would delete the jagged vectors. Hit the delete key, and now I just deleted those jagged vectors around it. But notice it deleted other vectors up here, so I would have to clean those up first because these are accidentally connected. So this one I can delete. This one I can't delete. So what I have to do is hit like node because it accidentally connected them. So here I'm going to hit cut that vector, cut this vector, go out of node mode, and now I can hit delete, and I've gotten rid of that one. So I would just systematically go through here and delete all those, and then I would turn around and clean up all of these individual vectors. And it's just working through this process, and sometimes it can take a couple hours to get through all of that. Does that make the, does that help, Kevin? Are there any more questions out there? We've been on here since 4:30, and it's been 5:45, so an hour and 15 minutes. I want to respect everybody's time, but I want to give you guys a chance to ask any questions. And I see Ellen says, I struggle adding tools. Glad I don't have to do it that. It's really not that tough. Ellen, so we
That's
should
what you
walk.
say.
No, I was going to say we should walk. It's not that tough if you know what you're doing, right? And
Right.
we should walk through that sometime. Mark does have a really good instructional video out on that where he talks about that process. So Mark Lindsay has a video if you want to go check that out. And it's a pretty straightforward process once you know what you're doing. I've got a video out on how to enter a V-bit into the tool, how to enter a tapered ball nose in as a V-bit. Also, that's similar to that. So we'll come back and we'll do that some other time, talk about entering the tools in the tool database. With that, I respect all of your time. Apologize for getting a little discombobulated with that surfacing bit. And I'll try to work on that smoother. I won't change computers right before the live stream. That was my downfall on this one. All right. Have a great night. And thank you for taking your time and spending it with me and Shane. Appreciate it. Goodbye.